500 likes for these top 5 scary ghost videos. In real life, as humans, as far as I know, we are supposed to be humans. We are always in need of help. Really? Maybe. I mean, if you're not in need of help, then you most definitely know someone who is. And if it happens that you're unaware of anyone who needs help, then please help me. I will be your first guest. Let's get serious now, because all this time we have been just messing around. Seriously? You mean that's not the scariest part of life? It didn't get real yet. What are you talking about? I meant, let's move into the paranormal world, not your personal struggles. Antonio is investigating this place that seems to look like an abandoned hospice. And what's a hospice? That's the cute nickname I give hospitals on Sundays. As Antonio was looking around this terrifying place, as it should, nothing had yet happened. All until the sound. It was a sound of terror, and when I heard it, my spine started rattling like jingle bells. The sound was coming from my entrance door. I thought that Azrael was waiting for me, until I realized it was coming from the video. It was as if someone was screeching on the glass. But where was it coming from? The video. No, I meant, like, where during the investigation. Oh, I see, young man, you're getting nosy right here. There was a board of glass laying on the wall, and there was the word help written on it, as if the spirits were trying to say something. Yeah, they were saying help, but that wasn't it. As the investigation continued and Antonio got inside the room, the curtain was acting as if it were in a horror movie. It was shuddering. Some bottles went flying. The doors were not still. They were moving, and the scariest part was that I found out who was knocking on my door.
¿En qué te puedo ayudar? Quiero saber quién eres, ¿por qué estás aquí? Quiero saber por qué estás aquí, qué es lo que necesitas. ¿Qué es lo que necesitas? Uy, 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 uy. Uy. ¿Me puedes decir dónde estás? Oye, amigos, si se escribió algo ahí. Uy. ¿Me puedes decir dónde estás? Uy, se va a quebrar, se va a quebrar, se va a quebrar. Se va a quebrar, se va a quebrar. Mira, ahí están los aruñones, ahí están los aruñones, ahí están los aruñones. Ahí están los aruñones. Están aruñando el cristal, amigos. Se acaban de hacer esos aruñones, vean, esos aruñones se hicieron. ¿Qué es lo que necesitas? Se acaban de hacer esos aruñones. Oye, están llorando. Escuchen. Quiero que escribas tu nombre y estás con nosotros. Hoy. ¿Cómo te llamas? Hoy. Se escucha bien chilo, amigos. Uy. Escribe tu nombre. Uy. Alguien está hablando arriba, amigos. Queremos verte. Manifieste y estás aquí conmigo. Ay, no es cierto. Ay, perdón, sí es cierto. ¿Estás aquí adentro? Habitación 4, dicen. Oye, escuchan. Oye, ¿lo escuchan? Oye, ¿qué fue eso? ¿Dónde estás? La ventana. ¿Dónde estás? Oye. A la madre, amigos, estoy con un poquito miedo, se los juro. Bien lo que sale de aquí adentro. Creo que aquí está dentro esa mujer, amigos. Uy, miren, se mueve eso. Bien, amigos. La cortina se movió, como que alguien la movió. Amigos. ¿Estás aquí conmigo? Miren, es adentro, miren. Es por dentro, por fuera. ¿Dónde estás? Uy. ¡Ay! ¿Qué fue eso? Alguien se está riendo, amigos. ¿Qué fue eso que cayó adentro? A lo mejor es la ventana, amigos. A lo mejor es una ventana que alguien me tiró algo por fuera de la ventana. Vamos a abrir la cortina. Pues las ventanas están cerradas. Miren, algo aventaron. Quiero que te manifiestes y estás aquí conmigo. Uy. ¿Dónde estás? Uy, madre. Ay, Dios, imposante. ¿Dónde estás? Uy, escuchan eso. ¿Escucharon eso? Fue aquí adentro, amigos. Fue aquí adentro de la puerta. Aquí adentro de la puerta fue. No mames. Uy. ¡Ay, no mames! Me caigo. ¿Qué fue eso? ¿Estás aquí conmigo? Miren, se movió. Manifiéstate, estás aquí. Se acaba de mover, amigos, la cortina. Manifiéstate si estás aquí. Manifiéstate. Se acaba de mover la cortina, amigos. Uy. ¿Escucharon? Manifiéstate, estás aquí conmigo. Quiero verte. Miren, la cortina. Alguien atrás de la cortina.
I don't know why a jinn would seek help from a human. I don't think that makes much sense. We really can't pay their bills where they live. Plus, it could just be someone who came here and experienced the same paranormal horror as Antonio, but the activity escalated to the point where they dragged him into a dark void. I should watch less cartoons. John and his haunted house. So let's talk. If I didn't know this man personally, I mean on a personal level, and then I watched the video where he was talking to his little daughter while she was playing some old video game from the golden era, then all of a sudden something paranormal took place as the McDonald's cup that for some reason was treasured inside the closet moved on its own all of a sudden, in a moment of daily father-daughter small talk time. But wait, you were going to say something at the beginning. You were teasing up for something when you said, if I didn't know him on a personal level. Did I actually say that? I really should take the advice to sleep more. Nah, folks, I don't really know John, but I meant that if I, let's say, just watched the video without being informed that it was a paranormal activity caught on camera and I didn't know the girl was his daughter. Based on John's tone, I would have thought the video was taken from the deep side of the internet. But in the second video, as John was trying to approach his daughter's room, where she was sleeping, I also thought people usually slept in the kitchen. Anyhow, as he was standing, some EVPs and tapping sounds could be heard. If you have some elephant ears, you could hear them, but the most terrifying activity takes place inside the room itself. Did the ghosts kidnap the little girl? Did you sleep enough today? How could they perform such an activity? They just shut the closet door.
A little morning routine now. At least she's into the classics. Little Dr. Mario. Blah. Yeah, I see you, baby. What is that? See, it ain't my daughter because she's snapping right there on the bed. Sounds like her closet door though. Try not to wake her up. See, I don't know. No, it's not doing it. See, she's snapping right there. I'm trying not to wake her up. I don't know what that was, though. She is soft. Whatever it was not even waking her up. Nah. Come on, man, she's in here sleeping. I don't know how that didn't even wake her up. Come on, man. You need to get out of her room. Dude, I'm telling you, that thing was closed, right? Come on, man. Now why is she sleeping? Man, I am good on that. You need to get out of her room.
That reaction from the little girl makes me wonder. Which reaction? The first one when she wasn't even paying attention to the closet, or the second one when she was sleeping, because in both cases, she didn't even react. That's exactly my point. When there is havoc in the house, kids will always be the most affected by it. Shiro and his friend are here today, not here in my house. They are here on this list today to investigate an abandoned old hotel located somewhere in Nagano, Japan. If it's even the one that I found on Google, because I don't think they have mentioned its full name or exact location. But based on my superior mind, I would guess that it is the Celine Love Hotel. Anyway, why did they call it that? Maybe because it's the place where lovers decide to spend their honeymoon. I have no idea, but we are not here to talk about love. We are here to talk about finding your family. I mean to talk about finding you some paranormal activity. At the beginning, as they were inside the car, some banging could be heard, as if some force knocked on the door from outside. It could also be just the chair squeaking. Later on, after they went through all the vegetation surrounding the building, came the first paranormal activity, as it should. Some sounds can be heard, as if someone were tapping on a wall. Shirts were all around hanging. I don't know what that had to do with the activity, but it was there for a reason. Later on, the tweezers were wriggling. You can call it the wind if you want, but then I would have to call the doctor to check on you, because can the wind move tweezers but leave everything else, including the tree leaves still? Only a ghost can do that, in my very humble opinion. But after many more noises and such, they found a light coming from a distance, as if someone was walking around in the forest. But it's not much of an accessible place to begin with, and there was supposed to be no one other than these two there.
にお越しいただいております。
ありがとうございます。
あ、そうですか。そうじゃないですか。いや。動物？
取りますか？
どこにいたっけ？手だっけ？OK です。
え？人いるんじゃん。住んでんのかな？撮影まだ。
大丈夫。
なんすかあれ？
そうなんですよ。
何なんすかこれ？服ばっか。
こういうのが無数にあるんですよ。
今ライトですか？
なんかパッと行きましょうね。
コバさんのライトじゃなくて？なんかパチパチって光が。
なんか行きました。はい。
あ、でもなんか聞こえる気もしてきた。女性っぽい声が。
聞こえますよね。女の人の声聞こえるんですけど。
女性ものっすね。
女性です、全部。
美味しくないこれ。置いとくみたいな。一旦出ます。
そうっすね。
あそこのドア開いてたっけ？開いてるか。あ、どうだったかな。てか揺れてませんそこ？なんか。あれ？風。
でも今日無風じゃないですか。
無風っすね。めっちゃ揺れてます。木かな？いや、当たってないもんな。
てか、風なくないですかだって。
何の音？こっちなんすか？
そっちも建物があったと思いますね。
こっち行きます。
この音じゃないですかだって。
これっぽかったですよね。
うん。オッケーです。
これ開け閉めしたってことかな。
似てましたよね、これ。
めっちゃ似てるっす。この音すると。マジ？うわ、動物じゃないんか、さっきの。
誰もいませんよね。
ナイス。一旦外出ますか？
ここだけ？
静かにしよ
ここだけ？
これめっちゃ当たりそうないですか？閉まるやつ。止まって。これありました？
いや、これは見てない。
全員子供だな。
本当だ。
なんだこれ。孤児院とか。
人。ちょっとテンパっちゃった。人誰か歩きまして、そっち行きませんでした。マジ。ちょっと今テンパっちゃって。
マジっすか？いないっすよ。
ちょっと待って。
マジ？あっち、カメラが心配だ。
これ、ちょっと一回止め。やべ、震える。
人っすか？
人だと思いますけど。
ガリガリやってた。
だから多分人だと思うんですけど。違うかな。
ちょっと待って。
マジか。
あれ？人だったんじゃないですか？
人ですか？さっきの。
出てったっすよ、あっち。
ちょっとライトやばいっす。びっくりした。そういうことか。いや、だってガチで
ってことは人がやってるってことじゃないですか？このホテルのなんか服とか。何の意味でやってる？
マジか。複数人一人でした。
多分一人じゃないですか？
なんか一人っぽいですよね。
なかったっす。あんま見えなかったですけど。なんか歩いてますよ。なんか変な足音した。おお、びっくりした。何
すげえ音したんですけど。
さっきの人あっち行ったっすよね。
確実に出ましたよね、
人が出てったっす。
どんどん後悔してきました。怖くて。いないですよね。
うわ、なんか喋ってる。
聞こえましたね。
I didn't mention the part where the leather-faced doll moves its arm on purpose. Really, what was the purpose? I forgot to. I mean, I wanted that part to be a little more chilling because paranormal activity is always more efficient when you don't expect it. That and because I already talked too much. A group of very friendly friends were hanging out somewhere in a dusty area, somewhere where you shouldn't drive your car. I honestly call these places dead roads, or maybe that's what the general public usually calls it, and I'm just trying to sound smart here. Basically, these fellas were recording what looked to be a white figure walking in the distance from one side to another. And since when are people wearing white walking from side to side at night considered scary? Since last year, usually people who wear white and do such activities are classified into two categories, the first being just normal human beings, and the second is shape-shifting jinns, regardless of whether that jinn is demonic or not. The second option is more likely if a scene happens somewhere in Spain for some reason. So back to the group. They were terrified. They were shaking as if that figure was trying to approach them, when in fact it was trying to stay as far away as possible. And to make things even scarier and more stupid, they approached him, but he was already far gone.
Mira.
Amigos.
No te pases de verga.
Amigos.
No te pases de verga, güey. Oh. No seas mamón. No seas mamón. Qué puto miedo, ve. Ay, hijo de su pinche madre. Háganse para atrás. Ey. No mames, es una mujer.
Ahí está.
Ah. Ay, güey. No mames. ¿Qué pedo, güey? Mira, desapareció. Ah, no pisaba. Exactamente, Sergio. No pisaba. No seas mamón. Traigo la pinche neta. Ay, cabrón. No seas mamón. No. No mames. ¿Qué pedo el tiro? Ay, Dios mío. Uy, ya se escuchó lejísimos. Ya está lejísimos. Se escuchó lejísimos. Ay, no te pases de ver. No te pases de lanza. Ay, cabrón. Esa es la Llorona.
Pues creo que sí. Creo que sí.
Hey, la neta yo siento que esa es la Llorona, Brian, No mames, nada más escuché los lamentos y se me enchinó la piel bien culero. Se me enchinó la piel bien culero. No, yo tengo miedo de ir para allá. Ay, hijo de la chingada. Ay, hijo de la chingada. No mames. Ay, güey. No seas mamón.
I don't really know if they thought that these howls were coming from that figure or if they knew it was some dog or wolf. Either way, they should be scared because they either end up a night meal or become a possessed group of friends. Or maybe, as you know, a group of wasted potential citizens 6 feet under. The 200-year-old haunted doll is described by some as the doll from hell. It has strange powers that terrify anyone who comes into contact with it. This is some basic information I ripped off some sites about the gypsy wooden doll that was owned by Kerry Walton for about 40 years. He found it inside an abandoned haunted house. They call this doll "Let Me Get the Toilet Real Quick." Sorry, that was me. I really need to go. They call this demonic piece of wood "Let Me Out." Nice name for such a possessed evil doll. Even when you look at its face, it's like looking at your wife's face with no makeup on. It's nerve-triggering. A documentary was made about this doll a long time ago, and it talked about some of the paranormal things this doll can cause. So they brought some psychopaths to try and find out what deep secrets were hiding inside this doll. Did I say a psychopath? I meant a psychic. Well, they're not very far apart in my opinion. Just try to provoke these psychics to the point where they ignite the fire inside of them, and you've got yourself a scary creature that will do everything you can't expect. Keisha is the lady psychic who will solve this so-called mystery. As she tried to communicate with the spiritual world, she found out that this doll holds all kinds of emotions trapped inside its body, from sorrow and sadness to anger and revulsion. It's sad about a child who drowned, and when Keisha brought it to the public's attention in some store, they couldn't stand its ugliness. Was Keisha really that bad? No, I was talking about the doll. Some even passed out.
More than 20 years ago, Kerry Walton found a doll under an abandoned home in southwest New South Wales. The house was said to be haunted, but that didn't worry Kerry at the time. However, as time passed, the doll started to take on a personality of its own. Kerry Walton began to feel himself falling under the spell of the grotesque doll, rumoured to have been made by wandering gypsies. From the dark and mystical days of Eastern Europe 200 years ago to the 20th century in Brisbane, Australia, a menacing gypsy doll, meticulously carved with every attention to every detail. The piercing eyes that somehow seemed to see all. The wig plaited from real human hair. But was this effigy crafted with love, hate, or sorrow? This doll, some say, is possessed by the devil.
Yeah, I was petrified, you know. The night I got home, I left him in the lounge room, and halfway through the night I had to go and put him back in his bag and put him under the house.
Possibly possessed by the devil. And maybe, just maybe, very much alive. Let's go back just a fragment in time, to more than 20 years ago, to a deserted farmhouse in an Australian country town. Local legend has it the house is haunted, but 23-year-old Kerry Walton is bolstered by a youthful enthusiasm that overrides his fear.
And I was sort of under the house and with a torch, you know, still a bit frightened about going under there, and I shined the torch on this fella, and I thought it was a little kid, you know, and I bumped my head in the head, on the joist, and then when I went over and had a closer look, there he was.
Driving home with the doll that night, Kerry began to have second thoughts about this piece of buried treasure he'd uncovered in that old haunted house.
When it was dark, every time a car went past, it looked like the doll was moving. I don't know if it was the lights, but that's what I put it down to.
That was the beginning. Who knows where it will all end? For more than 2 decades, Kerry Walton and his family have lived with this bizarre and mystifying relic from a bygone age. An age of witches, potions, and gypsy curses. Some swear its eyes change colour. Others are certain the doll moves unaided.
Has he affected other people the same way? Oh, lots of people. How many people like him?
Kerry's family weren't the only ones to sense something strange in the doll. Randolph, the family dog, attacked it on sight.
That film was shot more than 10 years ago. This is what happened when we taped a similar scene with a different dog just recently. A simple case of provocation. Natural canine fear. Not so, says Kerry Walton.
All dogs that's ever come in contact with this doll has tried to bite him.
When Kerry and his family decided they had to part with the doll, they were desperately in need of money, and they'd been offered $400 by a local shopkeeper. Kerry had sealed the deal by phone and was delivering the doll to the new owner. A voyage via science and seance that would provide some answers and pose new questions about the doll's ancestry.
I took it to the Australian Museum in Sydney, and they went over him and they had a look at the nails on the bottom of his soles here, and that's how they dated him, about 200 years old. 200
years old, handmade, probably from somewhere in Eastern Europe. That was the scientific explanation. But who was the woodcarver, and what were his motives? First, an American psychic offered to try to unlock this secret from the doll's past.
The guy that made this doll made it in remembrance of his son that was drowned.
Then came a second psychic in Kerry's hometown of Brisbane in Queensland. Keisha became fascinated with the doll, its history, and the American psychic's theory. She organized her own seance and says she traveled back in time to a tragedy in Europe. A tragedy Keisha felt was still present in the doll today.
He was sad, certainly sad. There is some sadness there, but sadness because, as we came up with, the drowning of a child somewhere. So that kind of sadness. So sometimes the doll becomes a child in broad daylight in the shopping center, thousands of people walking around. I told the story of the doll, pulled the lever, the curtains pulled back, women screamed, one woman passed out, somebody else threw up. Now you tell me, those people, at night time, yes. I've sat in ghost houses, I've stayed there all night, and I know that that night itself has an effect, but not in broad daylight, in a shopping center with lots of noise. Those people were really scared, and the reason for that, he didn't like being there. He didn't like being made an exhibition, if you like. He didn't like that.
Keisha seems to communicate with the doll, seems to have some kind of rapport with him. But off-screen, before the cameras started rolling...
And we sat him on my lap because we were trying to figure out what was the best shot. And the doll wriggled. That was the first time, my first encounter with him. When he wriggled in my lap, just like a child wriggles to get settled in a mother's lap. So he wriggled. And of course I was terrified, and I said, this doll is wriggling, and the guy said, oh, come on, you know. And then when one of the guys said, oh, come on, this is impossible, the doll, we would swear, turned its head. It creaked, the neck creaked, looked at the cameraman.
Well, more than 10 years after that first television encounter with Keisha, just the other day, in fact, we were taping with Kerry Walton and the doll. We just got to the part where Kerry tried to sell him, and...
So I put an ad in the paper for him only for $400. He lost a light.
Another exploding light bulb. Just a coincidence? Keisha has other ideas.
Well, I think it's because he was saying, oh, here we go again. These are these cameras, they're going to ridicule me. A memory. You and I have memories. Why shouldn't he? He is a real person. His energy is real. He has the energy of someone trapped in him.
Did you see the arm of that dude who was sitting with Keisha during the spiritual session? Did you see how hairy it was? That was the most terrifying scene of all, in my opinion. Now my question is, why does this doll care so much about a child who passed away? Is it because he wasn't able to subscribe and watch the next video appearing on the screen? How sad.